Disappearance of the Semite, how a linguistic identity was politicized, racialized, and lost.
A thousand voices lost in the sand, words carved in stone by a ghostly hand, echoes whisper through the deserts.
In this part, I trace the earliest uses of the term Semite, connecting it to the so-called Semitic languages, Akkadian, Hebrew, Aramaic, Arabic, and others, and the peoples who spoke them. I examined how ancient cultural and linguistic relationships were interpreted, and often misinterpreted, through biblical genealogies and Enlightenment-era racial theories, which set the stage for more divisive applications of the term. Part 2, Historical Roots of Semitic Identity, including linguistic and cultural ties. Before Semite became a political signifier or a racialized label, it was a term born of comparative linguistics. In the 18th century, European scholars, particularly within German philology, sought to classify the world's languages into families. They coined the term Semitic to describe a group of languages derived from a common ancestral root. This designation linked Hebrew, Arabic, Aramaic, Akkadian, Phoenician, and other languages into a single linguistic family, one that would later be expanded to include Ethiopian languages like Ge'ez and Amharic. The name Semitic was drawn from the biblical figure Shem, one of Noah's sons, as listed in the Table of Nations in Genesis. This biblical taxonomy, while not scientific by modern standards, shaped early European scholarly approaches to human origins and linguistic relations. The descendants of Shem were believed to have populated parts of the ancient Near East, and the languages they spoke came to be grouped under the umbrella of Semitic languages. Importantly, these languages were not confined to any single race or religion. Semitic speakers spanned a wide swath of the ancient world, encompassing Jews, Arabs, Assyrians, Babylonians, Phoenicians, Canaanites, and others. They shared not only grammatical structures and lexical roots, but also overlapping mythologies, cosmologies, and socio-religious customs. The cultural exchanges between these groups were as rich as they were complex, marked by both cooperation and conflict. In ancient Mesopotamia, Akkadian and East Semitic language was the lingua franca of empire and diplomacy. In the Levant, Canaanite dialects evolved into Hebrew and Phoenician, each playing central roles in religion, trade, and writing systems. Aramaic, the language of the Chaldeans, and later the lingua franca of large parts of the Near East, was spoken by both Jews and non-Jews for centuries, including during the time of Jesus. The historical record shows not only deep linguistic ties, but also shared religious and cultural motifs. Flood narratives, prophetic traditions, poetic forms, and ritual practices often echo across these Semitic cultures. This shared matrix complicates any attempt to draw hard boundaries between Jewish and Arab identity, or between ancient and modern constructs of peoplehood. Yet, beginning in the 19th century, European racial science began to appropriate the term Semitic in ways that would distort its original function. Scholars and pseudoscientists alike began to speak of Semitic races, often in opposition to Aryan or Indo-European ones. What had once been a linguistic family now became, in popular and academic discourse, a racialized category, a transformation that would have enduring consequences in both anti-Jewish and anti-Arab ideologies. Understanding the true scope of the historical Semitic identity forces us to confront the artificiality of these later divisions. The peoples who spoke Semitic languages were not a monolith, but they were also not strangers. They belonged to a broad, interwoven cultural continuum that defies modern racial logic. In this chapter, I grounded the rest of our inquiry in the rich soil of these historical and linguistic roots. To recognize what has been lost, politicized, or erased, we must first see what was once shared.
A thousand voices lost in the sand, words carved carved in stone by a ghostly hand. Echoes whisper through the desert's face. Time hides the key to the sacred place. A scholar's quest to decode the past, sifting through shadows that forever last. In fate beneath